The doctor accidentally sent her resume to the CEO. The next day, he surprised her with his reply. Before we begin, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Clara Vega rubbed her bloodshot eyes and glanced at the digital clock on her computer screen. 3:15 in the morning. She had been awake for nearly 26 hours straight, the last 18 of which she'd spent in the emergency room of Boston General Hospital, dealing with everything from a nail gun accident to a teenager who had superglued his fingers together while building a model rocket. Just one more thing, she mumbled to herself, her fingers tapping mechanically across the keyboard. The attending physician position at the prestigious Westlake Medical Center had opened unexpectedly when Dr. Patterson announced his early retirement, and applications were closing in. She squinted at the screen. 5 hours and 45 minutes. The position represented everything she had been working toward. Better hours, research opportunities, and a chance to establish her career in cardiology. After 4 years of medical school, 5 years of residency, and 2 years as an emergency physician, Clara was more than qualified. She just needed to update her resume, write a compelling cover letter, and somehow make her sleep-deprived brain function long enough to hit send. Clara took another sip of her lukewarm coffee and grimaced. The cafeteria had closed hours ago, and the break room only offered a coffee machine that produced something closer to motor oil than an actual beverage. Still, caffeine was caffeine. Her phone buzzed, a text from her roommate and fellow doctor, May. "Are you still at the hospital? Your shift ended 6 hours ago." Clara typed back quickly. "Almost done. Working on Westlake application. Don't wait up." She returned to her cover letter, reading it aloud in a whisper. "My experience in emergency medicine has honed my ability to make critical decisions under pressure, a skill that would transfer seamlessly to your cardiology department." The words blurred on the screen. Clara blinked hard, trying to focus. After triple-checking her resume and cover letter, she finally attached the documents to an email addressed to Dr. Hartman, the chief of medicine at Westlake. "And send," Clara murmured, clicking the button with a sense of accomplishment that momentarily overshadowed her exhaustion. A soft ping confirmed the email had been sent, and Clara allowed herself a small smile. Now she could go home, collapse into bed, and sleep for at least 6 hours before her next shift started. She was gathering her belongings when her email notification chimed, probably just an automated confirmation from the Westlake application system. Clara glanced at her inbox and froze. "Email delivery failure. Your message to hartmanwestlakemed.org could not be delivered." "No, no, no," Clara whispered, panic instantly washing away her fatigue. She clicked on the notification. "The email address you entered, hartmanwestlakemed.org, does not exist or is incorrect." "Did you mean hartmanwestlakemedical.org?" Clara groaned, dropping her head into her hands. How could she have made such a basic mistake? She'd been so careful about proofreading the content, but had somehow typed the wrong email address. She quickly corrected the address and resent the email to the proper domain. Another ping from her inbox caught her attention. This one wasn't an error message. It was a delivery confirmation, but not from Westlake Medical. "Your message to leo@hartmanenterprises.com has been delivered." Clara stared at the screen in horror. Somehow, in her exhausted state, she had also sent her application to an entirely different address. She frantically searched her sent folder and discovered that she had indeed sent her entire application package, resume, cover letter, and all, to someone named Leo at Hartman Enterprises. How is this even possible? She groaned, trying to remember how she could have made such a mistake. Then it dawned on her. She had been researching the background of Dr. Hartman, the chief of medicine, and must have copied his name into a search engine. Hartman Enterprises must have come up in the results, and somehow she had copied that email address instead. Clara desperately looked for a way to recall the email, but there was no such option. The damage was done. Her professional credentials, work history, and personal contact information were now sitting in some random person's inbox. "It's fine," she told herself, closing her laptop with perhaps more force than necessary. "This Leo person will probably just delete it. People get wrong emails all the time." With that small consolation, Clara packed up her things and headed home, too tired to worry anymore about an email that would likely be ignored and forgotten by morning. Leonardo Hartmann scrolled through his emails with one hand while holding a conference call with Tokyo on his other phone. At 34, he was the youngest CEO in the Boston financial district, having taken over Hartmann Enterprises after his father's retirement 3 years ago. The company, which specialized in medical technology investments, had doubled its portfolio under his leadership. "Yes, Tanaka-san, I understand your concerns about the regulatory approval timeline," Leo said smoothly into his phone, his eyes still scanning his inbox. "But our legal team has assured me that..." His attention was caught by an unusual email subject line. "Application for attending physician position, Clara Vega, MD." "One moment, please," he said to his Japanese partner, putting the call on hold. Curiosity piqued, Leo opened the email. "Dear Dr. Hartmann, I am writing to express my interest in the attending physician position in the Department of Cardiology at Westlake Medical Center." Leo raised an eyebrow as he skimmed the impressively written cover letter and attached resume. Dr. Clara Vega had graduated top of her class from Johns Hopkins, completed her residency at Massachusetts General, and had an impressive list of emergency medicine credentials. She had also clearly sent her application to the wrong person. He glanced at the timestamp, 3:17 a.m. The poor woman had probably been working all night and mixed up her email addresses. Leo was about to delete it when something stopped him. Maybe it was the confident tone of her letter, or perhaps it was the photo attached to her resume, a professional headshot of a woman with determined dark eyes and a serious expression that suggested she rarely had time for nonsense. Or maybe it was just that Leonardo Hartmann had always enjoyed the unexpected. He picked up his phone again. "Tanaka-san, something has come up that requires my immediate attention. My assistant will reschedule our call for tomorrow." After ending the call, Leo leaned back in his leather chair and considered the email again. Hartmann Enterprises was currently developing a new cardiac monitoring system that needed clinical consultants. They had been struggling to find physicians willing to take time away from their practices to consult on the project. And here was a highly qualified cardiologist who had just dropped into his inbox. A slow smile spread across Leo's face as an idea formed. His assistant, Deborah, would call it impulsive and inappropriate. His board would probably agree. But Leonardo hadn't built his reputation by following conventional wisdom. He clicked reply and began to type, "Dear Dr. Vega, thank you for your interest in the position. While I'm not Dr. Hartmann of Westlake Medical Center, I am Leonardo Hartmann, CEO of Hartmann Enterprises. I believe you sent your application to the wrong email address. However, I found your qualifications intriguing. Our company is currently developing a next-generation cardiac monitoring system, and we're seeking medical consultants for the project. Based on your impressive credentials, I'd like to offer you an opportunity to interview, not for the position you applied for, but for a consulting role with my company. The compensation would be significantly higher than a hospital salary, and the hours more flexible. If you're interested, please contact my assistant to schedule a meeting. Regards, Leonardo Hartmann, CEO, Hartmann Enterprises." Leo reread his message, wondering if he was crossing a professional line. Then again, unconventional opportunities often led to the most interesting outcomes. He hit send before he could reconsider. Clara woke to the persistent buzzing of her phone. She fumbled for it on her nightstand, squinting at the screen. 6 missed calls from May, 4 text messages, and 27 new emails. "What the?" she mumbled, sitting up in bed. The events of the previous night came rushing back. The Westlake application, the email error. She quickly scanned her texts from May. Clara, check your email right now. OMG, Clara, are you seeing this? Wake up! Leonardo Hartman just responded to your email. Clara, the Leonardo Hartman, Boston's most eligible bachelor tech mogul Shark Tank guy. Clara's heart raced as she opened her email app. There, at the top of her inbox, was a response from leohartmanenterprises.com. She read it once, twice, a third time. This couldn't be real. Leonardo Hartman was offering her a job interview because she'd accidentally sent him her resume. The Leonardo Hartman whose face had been on the cover of Forbes last month, whose company was valued at over $2 billion. This has to be a joke, she said aloud to her empty bedroom. Or I'm still asleep and this is some weird dream caused by caffeine overdose. Clara's phone rang again. It was May. Please tell me you've seen the email, May said the moment Clara answered. I just read it. This can't be real, right? It's real! I googled the email domain and everything. That's his actual company email. Clara, do you realize what just happened? You accidentally sent your resume to one of the richest men in Boston, and he offered you a job. He offered me an interview, Clara corrected, still struggling to process the situation. For a consulting position I know nothing about. Who cares? It's Leonardo Hartman. He's like 35, single and worth billions. Plus, have you seen his photos? The man looks like he was carved from marble. I'm not interested in dating him, May. I'm trying to become a cardiologist, remember? His company develops medical technology. This could be even better for your career than Westlake. Plus, he said the pay is significantly higher. Do you know what kind of student loans you could pay off? Clara bit her lip. Her medical school debt was substantial, and it would take years to pay off on a hospital salary. I should just ignore it, Clara said, but with less conviction than before. It's completely unprofessional. He's only interested because I accidentally spammed his inbox. Or, May countered, he recognized talent when he saw it. Clara, you're brilliant. You graduated top of our class. Maybe this is the universe giving you an opportunity. Clara glanced at the clock. She had to be back at the hospital in 3 hours for another 12-hour shift. I'll think about it, she said finally. Don't think too long, May warned. Men like that don't wait around. After hanging up, Clara reread the email once more. There was something both arrogant and intriguing about Leonardo's message. He hadn't even questioned whether she'd be interested in a completely different position than the one she'd applied for. He'd just assumed she'd jump at his offer. Well, Mr. Hartman, Clara murmured, you might be in for a surprise. She began typing her response. Dear Mr. Hartman, thank you for your email. You're correct that my application was intended for Westlake Medical Center. I apologize for the misdirection. While I appreciate your offer, I should clarify that my career goals are firmly directed toward clinical practice. I've spent nearly a decade training to treat patients, not to consult on technology development. That said, I'm curious about your cardiac monitoring system. If you'd be willing to provide more details about the consulting position, including the exact nature of the work and time commitment required, I might consider it alongside my application to Westlake. Sincerely, Clara Vega. MD Clara reread her response, satisfied that it was professional while not completely dismissing the opportunity. She hit send and got up to prepare for her shift, trying not to think about the fact that she had just negotiated with one of Boston's most powerful executives. As she was brushing her teeth, her phone chimed with a new email notification. Leonardo Hartman had already responded. Dr. Vega, I admire your dedication to clinical practice. Our cardiac monitoring system actually aims to reduce patient hospitalization by providing real-time data to physicians, potentially saving thousands of lives annually. Instead of a formal interview, perhaps we could discuss this over dinner tonight. I find conversations flow more naturally outside the office environment. Orion at 8 p.m. My driver can pick you up. Clara nearly choked on her toothpaste. Dinner, a driver. And he had signed it Leo. as if they were already on a first-name basis. This wasn't a job offer. It was starting to sound like a date. Clara typed back quickly, "Mr. Hartman, I have hospital duties until 11 p.m. tonight. Additionally, I prefer to keep initial professional discussions in a business setting. If you're serious about the consulting position, I'd be happy to meet at your office during business hours later this week. Dr. Vega." The response came almost immediately. "Dr. Vega, dedication noted. Lunch tomorrow at Hartman Enterprises noon, and please call me Leo, everyone does." Leo. Clara stared at her phone, a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth despite herself. He was persistent. She'd give him that. "Tomorrow works. Noon. And you can call me Dr. Vega. Not everyone does. Clara Vega, MD." As Clara put down her phone and continued getting ready for her shift, she couldn't shake the feeling that her misdirected email was about to change her life in ways she couldn't possibly predict. Clara stood in front of the imposing glass tower that housed Hartman Enterprises, her reflection distorted in the sleek facade. Located in Boston's financial district, the building seemed to reach endlessly toward the sky, its modern architecture a stark contrast to the historic brownstone she passed on her walk from the subway station. She checked her watch, 11:45. 15 minutes early, just as she'd planned. After finishing a night shift that had run 2 hours longer than scheduled, Clara had managed exactly 4 hours of sleep before preparing for this meeting. She had debated cancelling at least 3 times during her morning coffee, but curiosity and May's persistent encouragement had won out. "You can always say no after hearing what he's offering," May had reasoned while helping Clara select an outfit. "But you'll never know if you don't go." Now, dressed in a navy blue pantsuit that conveyed professionalism without being overly formal, Clara took a deep breath and pushed through the revolving doors into the lobby. The interior was a testament to minimalist luxury, all clean lines, pale marble, and strategically placed greenery. A massive reception desk stretched across the far wall, staffed by 2 immaculately dressed women. "Good morning," Clara said, approaching the desk. "I'm Dr. Clara Vega. I have a meeting with Leonardo Hartman at noon." The receptionist's eyebrows rose slightly at the mention of the CEO's name, but her professional demeanor never faltered. "Of course, Dr. Vega. Mr. Hartman is expecting you. Please sign in here." She slid an electronic tablet across the desk. As Clara completed the digital sign-in, the receptionist made a discreet call. "Dr. Vega has arrived for her noon appointment with Mr. Hartman." "Yes, I'll send her up immediately." She handed Clara a visitor's badge. "Please take the executive elevator to the 38th floor. Mr. Hartman's assistant will meet you there." Clara thanked her and walked toward the designated elevator, feeling increasingly out of place. The other people in the lobby wore expressions of purposeful determination, carrying sleek briefcases and speaking in hushed, important tones. Clara clutched her simple leather portfolio, containing copies of her resume, medical license, and certifications, and tried to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. The executive elevator moved with silent efficiency, rising 38 floors in what seemed like seconds. When the door slid open, Clara stepped into a reception area that was even more impressive than the lobby. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Boston Harbor, and the walls displayed contemporary artwork that Clara suspected cost more than her annual salary. A woman in her 50s with a stylish silver bob approached Clara immediately. "Dr. Vega, I'm Deborah Wilson, Mr. Hartman's executive assistant. Welcome to Hartman Enterprises." "Thank you," Clara said, shaking the woman's outstretched hand. Deborah's grip was firm, her gaze assessing, but not unfriendly. "Mr. Hartman is just finishing a call. He asked that I give you a brief tour while you wait. Would that be acceptable?" "Of course," Clara replied, curious to see more of this operation. Deborah led her through a series of open-concept work areas where teams huddled around digital displays or worked at standing desks. Hartman Enterprises focuses primarily on medical technology investments and development, Deborah explained. We currently have 17 projects in various stages, from concept to market. They passed a large laboratory space where engineers and technicians worked with components Clara recognized from her hospital experience: cardiac monitors, infusion pumps, and diagnostic equipment. "This is our prototyping lab," Deborah said. "The cardiac monitoring system Mr. Hartman mentioned to you is being developed here." Clara peered through the glass wall, her professional interest genuinely piqued. "Is that the Holter monitor redesign?" she asked, pointing to a device that resembled a small, flexible patch. Deborah looked slightly surprised. "You're familiar with our projects?" "Not specifically," Clara admitted, "but I've used enough cardiac monitoring equipment to recognize the basic concept. That design looks much less cumbersome than current models." "That's precisely the goal," came a male voice from behind them. Clara turned to find herself face to face with Leonardo Hartman. Her first thought was that the magazine photos hadn't done him justice. Tall and athletic, with dark hair and intelligent blue eyes, he carried himself with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to commanding attention. He wore a tailored charcoal suit without a tie, the top button of his shirt casually undone. "Dr. Vega," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming. I see Deborah has started the tour without me." "Mr. Hartman," Clara replied, shaking his hand firmly. His grip was strong but not overbearing, and he held the handshake a beat longer than necessary. "Leo, please," he corrected with a smile that suggested he was used to getting his way. "Deborah, is the conference room ready for lunch?" "Everything is set up, sir. I've ordered from Marino's as requested." "Excellent. Doctor, Vega and I will continue from here." Deborah nodded and departed, leaving Clara alone with the CEO. "So, Dr. Vega," Leo said, gesturing for her to walk alongside him, "what do you think of our humble operations so far?" Clara raised an eyebrow at the word humble. Nothing about Hartman Enterprises seemed remotely humble. "It's impressive," she acknowledged. "Though I'm still not entirely clear on why I'm here." Leo chuckled. "Direct. I like that." He led her into a conference room where a lunch spread had been arranged on a side table. Gourmet sandwiches, salads, and an assortment of beverages. The wall-to-wall windows offered another stunning view, this time of the city skyline. "Please help yourself," Leo said, gesturing to the food. "I assumed you'd be coming from the hospital and might appreciate a real lunch for a change." Clara was indeed hungry, having skipped breakfast in her rush to prepare for the meeting. "Thank you," she said, selecting a sandwich and a sparkling water. Leo did the same, and they settled at the conference table. "To answer your question," Leo said once they were seated, "you're here because you accidentally sent me your resume, and I recognized an opportunity." "An opportunity for what exactly?" Clara asked, maintaining her professional demeanor despite the informality of their lunch setting. Leo leaned forward slightly. "Our cardiac monitoring system is entering clinical trials in 3 months. We need physician consultants who understand both the technical and practical aspects of cardiac care. Your resume indicates expertise in emergency medicine with a focus on cardiac emergencies. That's precisely the perspective we need." Clara took a sip of her water. "I'm trained as an emergency physician with plans to specialize in cardiology. That doesn't make me a technology consultant." "No, but it makes you someone who understands what works and what doesn't in a clinical setting." Leo pulled out a tablet and brought up a schematic of the monitoring device. "Our engineers are brilliant, but they've never had to attach a monitor to a distressed patient at 3 in the morning." That was a fair point, Clara had to admit. She had certainly cursed under her breath at poorly designed medical equipment during many emergency situations. "What exactly would this consulting role involve?" she asked, her professional curiosity genuinely engaged now. Leo smiled, clearly sensing her interest. 2 days per week at Hartman Enterprises, reviewing prototypes, providing feedback on usability, and eventually helping to design the clinical trials. The position would last at least through the FDA approval process, which we estimate will take 18 to 24 months. And after that? That would depend on you and on the project's success. There could be opportunities for ongoing involvement as we expand the technology, or you might choose to return to full-time clinical work. Leo took a bite of his sandwich, studying her as he chewed. The base compensation would be $200,000 annually, prorated for the part-time schedule, plus performance bonuses and stock options. Clara nearly choked on her water. That was significantly more than her current salary, for less than half the hours. That seems excessive for a consulting position, she said cautiously. Leo shrugged. We pay for value. Your expertise could help us avoid costly mistakes and potentially bring our product to market months earlier than scheduled. That's worth millions to us. Clara considered his words as she ate her sandwich. The offer was tempting. The money, the hours, the chance to influence medical technology that could help thousands of patients. But something still bothered her. Why me? She asked finally. There must be hundreds of cardiologists in Boston with more experience and better credentials for this type of work. Leo set down his sandwich and met her gaze directly. 3 reasons. First, your resume shows exceptional academic performance and clinical skills. Second, your cover letter demonstrated an ability to communicate clearly and persuasively, a valuable skill when working with our engineers. He paused, and a hint of mischief appeared in his eyes. And third, I'm intrigued by someone who responds to an accidental opportunity by setting professional boundaries and negotiating terms, rather than either ignoring it or jumping at it blindly. That suggests both confidence and good judgment. Clara wasn't sure how to respond to that assessment. It was surprisingly perceptive, and made her wonder if Leonardo Hartman was more than just the charming playboy CEO that magazines portrayed him to be. I should mention, she said, deciding to be completely forthright, that I'm still pursuing the position at Westlake Medical Center. If I'm offered that job, I would need to make it my priority. Instead of being put off by this declaration, Leo seemed even more interested. Of course. I wouldn't expect otherwise. The consulting position is designed to be compatible with clinical practice. Many of our physician consultants maintain hospital privileges. He slid a folder across the table to her. Here's a detailed description of the position, including compensation, hours, responsibilities, and confidentiality requirements. Take it home, review it, and let me know your decision by Friday. Clara accepted the folder, surprised by the sudden business-like turn of the conversation. That's it? No formal interview questions? No panel of executives to meet? Leo's mouth quirked in amusement. This was the interview, Dr. Vega. I don't need to ask about your 5-year plan or your greatest weakness. Your resume tells me you're qualified, and our conversation tells me you're thoughtful and direct. Those are the qualities I'm looking for. He stood, indicating that the meeting was concluding. Besides, I have excellent instincts about people. They rarely let me down. Clara rose as well, gathering her portfolio and the folder he had given her. Thank you for lunch, Mr. Hartman. I'll review the offer and contact you by Friday. Leo, he corrected again, escorting her toward the door. And one more thing. If you do accept, I hope you'll call me that. Clara allowed herself a small smile. We'll see. I haven't accepted yet. But you will, he said, with that same confident smile that should have been annoying but somehow wasn't. I have a feeling about this, Clara. Or should I say Dr. Vega? As they reached the reception area, Leo extended his hand again. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to your call. Clara shook his hand, noticing again the warmth of his grip. Thank you for the opportunity, however unexpected it may have been. Sometimes the best opportunities are the unexpected ones, he replied, his blue eyes holding hers a moment longer than necessary. As Deborah escorted her back to the elevator, Clara found herself more conflicted than she had anticipated. The position was appealing, the company impressive, and Leonardo Hartman himself was intriguing. Not that his personal appeal should factor into her professional decision, she reminded herself firmly. In the elevator descending to the lobby, Clara opened the folder and began scanning the offer details. The compensation package was even more generous than Leo had indicated, including health benefits, retirement contributions, and a signing bonus. Her phone buzzed with a text from May. "How was lunch with billionaire McDreamy?" Clara typed back quickly. "Professional. Interesting offer. We'll tell you details at home." Another text arrived immediately. "Did he ask you out?" Clara rolled her eyes. "It was a job interview." May's response, "That's not a no." Clara put her phone away as the elevator reached the lobby. As she walked through the revolving doors into the bright afternoon sunlight, she couldn't help but feel that her life had somehow shifted course in the span of a lunch hour. Leonardo Hartman watched from his office window as Clara Vega exited the building and headed toward the subway station, her posture straight and purposeful even after what had been, for her, a night shift followed by a high-pressure meeting. "So?" Deborah asked from the doorway, her tone suggesting she already knew the answer. "She'll take it," Leo said confidently, turning away from the window. "You seem very sure," his assistant observed. "She didn't appear to be the type easily swayed by money or charm." "She's not," Leo agreed. "That's precisely why she'll accept. The position is genuinely perfect for her skills, and she's smart enough to recognize that." Deborah gave him a knowing look. "And the fact that you found her attractive had nothing to do with your decision to offer her the job?" Leo had the grace to look slightly abashed. "Her qualifications are impeccable, and you know we've been struggling to find the right medical consultant. The fact that she happens to be beautiful and challenging is incidental." Deborah hummed skeptically. "Just remember that mixing business and pleasure rarely ends well, especially for the CEO who could be accused of inappropriate behavior." "Your concern is noted," Leo said, moving to his desk. "But this is strictly professional. Dr. Vega made that abundantly clear, and I respect professional boundaries." Deborah raised an eyebrow but said nothing further on the subject. "Your 2 o'clock is waiting in the main conference room. The Tokyo team is on the video call. Thank you. I'll be right there." As Deborah left, Leo found himself glancing once more out the window, though Clara was long gone from view. There was something about her, a combination of intelligence, determination, and an underlying warmth that she seemed to try to hide behind professional reserve. In his world of yes-men, social climbers, and people who wanted something from him, her straightforward approach was refreshing. Leo shook his head, refocusing on the meeting ahead. Dr. Clara Vega was a potential consultant, nothing more. The fact that he couldn't quite get her serious dark eyes out of his mind was a complication he hadn't anticipated, and one he would need to manage carefully. Clara arrived home to find May waiting impatiently in their shared apartment, a bottle of wine already open on the coffee table. "Finally!" May exclaimed, jumping up from the sofa. "I've been dying all day. Tell me everything. Is he as gorgeous in person? What was his office like? Did he hit on you? Are you taking the job?" Clara set down her bag and kicked off her shoes. "In order. Yes, he's attractive. His office is ridiculous. It takes up the top 3 floors of a downtown skyscraper. No, he was completely professional, and I don't know yet." She collapsed onto the sofa and accepted the glass of wine May handed her. "The job offer is substantial." "How substantial?" May asked, sitting beside her. Clara told her the figure, and May's eyes widened. "For part-time work." "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. 2 days a week consulting on their cardiac monitoring system. And you're actually considering saying no?" May looked incredulous. "Clara, do you know how many years it would take to earn that kind of money at the hospital?" "It's not just about money," Clara protested. "My career goal has always been clinical practice. Becoming a consultant for a tech company wasn't exactly in my 5-year plan." "Plans change," May said pragmatically. "And it's not like you'd be abandoning medicine. You'd be helping develop technology that could save lives." Clara sipped her wine thoughtfully. "That's what Leo said." "Oh, it's Leo now, is it?" May teased. "He insisted," Clara said, rolling her eyes. Apparently, everyone calls him Leo. Not surprising. He seems like the type who'd be casual despite his position. May leaned forward eagerly. So, what was he like? The magazines make him sound like some combination of Tony Stark and Mr. Darcy. Despite herself, Clara laughed. He's confident, that's for sure. Maybe a bit arrogant, but not in an offensive way, and he's perceptive. He sees things most people wouldn't notice, like accidentally sent resumes from overworked doctors. Exactly. Clara shook her head, still amazed at the sequence of events that had led to today's meeting. He said he has excellent instincts about people. And what are your instincts telling you about him? May asked, watching her friend closely. Clara considered the question. That he's used to getting what he wants, that he's brilliant but probably difficult to work for, and that there's more to him than the playboy CEO image. Sounds like someone else I know, May said with a pointed look. Minus the playboy part, of course. What's that supposed to mean? Just that you're also brilliant, driven, and much more complex than you let most people see. May refilled their wine glasses. Maybe that's why he's interested in you, professionally speaking, of course. Clara thought about Leo's parting words. Sometimes the best opportunities are the unexpected ones. There had been something in his eyes when he said it, a challenge perhaps, or an invitation. I still haven't heard back from Westlake, she said, changing the subject slightly. If they offer me the attending position, that would be my first choice. Of course, May agreed, but if they don't, or what if you could do both? Clara sighed and leaned back against the sofa cushions. I don't know. I need to think about it. Well, you have until Friday, May reminded her. In the meantime, we should celebrate the fact that you have options. How many people can say they accidentally emailed a billionaire and ended up with a job offer? Clara laughed and clinked her glass against May's. When you put it that way, it does sound ridiculous. Not ridiculous, May corrected. Serendipitous, like the beginning of a great story. Or a cautionary tale, Clara added wryly. But as they finished their wine, and Clara went to change for her evening shift at the hospital, she couldn't help but wonder which it would turn out to be, and why the thought of seeing Leonardo Hartman again made her pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with professional opportunity. Clara's week spiraled into chaos after her lunch with Leonardo Hartman. Back-to-back shifts at the hospital left her exhausted, with barely enough time to contemplate the job offer sitting on her kitchen counter. By Thursday evening, she still hadn't made a decision. You're overthinking this, May said as they shared a quick dinner before Clara's night shift. The Hartman offer is amazing. What's really holding you back? Clara pushed her food around her plate. I got a call from Westlake today. They want me to come in for a final interview tomorrow morning. That's great news. May's enthusiasm faltered when she saw Clara's expression. Isn't it? It should be, Clara admitted. Westlake has been my goal for years, but now I'm not sure what I want. Her phone chimed with a text message. Clara glanced at it, then froze. What? May asked. Is it the hospital? Clara shook her head and passed her phone to May, who read aloud, Dr. Vega, I realize tomorrow is your decision deadline. Before you decide, I'd like to show you something that might help clarify the potential of our project. Are you available for 30 minutes tomorrow at 9 a.m.? Leo. Interesting timing, May noted. What time is your Westlake interview? 11, Clara replied, taking her phone back and staring at Leo's message. I could theoretically do both. Then do both, May said simply. Give yourself all the information before deciding. Clara nodded slowly and typed a response. I can meet at 9 a.m., but I have another appointment at 11. Where should I come? Leo's reply came immediately. Perfect. Not the office this time. Meet me at Boston General 3rd floor cardiology lab. I'll explain when you arrive. Clara frowned. He wants to meet at my hospital? Curiouser and curiouser, May said with a grin. Better get some sleep tonight. Tomorrow sounds like it'll be interesting. Friday morning arrived with grey skies and drizzling rain. Clara entered Boston General at 8:45, feeling strange to be there in a blazer and slacks rather than scrubs. She took the elevator to the third floor, wondering what Leo could possibly want to show her at the hospital. As the elevator doors opened, Clara spotted Leo immediately. He was engaged in conversation with Dr. Eleanor James, the head of the cardiology department and one of the most respected physicians in the hospital. "Ah, Dr. Vega," Leo called when he saw her. "Thank you for coming." "Dr. Vega," Eleanor greeted her with a warm smile. "Mr. Hartman has been telling me about his company's new cardiac monitoring system. I didn't realize you were consulting on the project." "I'm not," Clara said quickly. "At least not yet. It's still under consideration." "Well, I hope you'll consider it seriously," Eleanor said. "From what I've seen, it could revolutionize how we monitor at-risk cardiac patients." Leo's expression remained neutral, but Clara detected a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. "Dr. James has graciously allowed us to test a prototype with one of her patients," he explained. "I thought you might want to see it in action before making your decision." Clara followed them into a patient room, where an elderly man was sitting up in bed, reading a newspaper. A small, almost invisible patch was attached to his chest, with no visible wires or bulky monitor. "Mr. Peterson has been using our prototype for 3 days now," Leo explained. "Dr. James, would you mind showing Dr. Vega the data collection?" Eleanor pulled up a tablet and showed Clara the interface, a comprehensive, real-time display of the patient's cardiac metrics, complete with predictive analytics that flagged potential issues before they became critical. "We've had 2 early interventions based on the system's warnings," Eleanor explained. "Both times, we were able to adjust Mr. Peterson's medication before he experienced symptoms." Clara examined the data, impressed despite herself. "The predictive algorithm is that accurate?" "It's still being refined," Leo said, "but early results are promising. That's where your expertise would be valuable. Emergency physicians understand the critical indicators better than anyone." Clara spent the next 20 minutes reviewing the system, asking technical questions that Leo and Eleanor answered in detail. The technology was genuinely impressive, far more advanced than anything currently available. As they left Mr. Peterson's room, Eleanor was called away for a consult, leaving Clara alone with Leo in the corridor. "That was very strategic," Clara remarked. "Bringing me here having Dr. James involved." Leo's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "I prefer thoughtful to strategic. I wanted you to see the real-world impact of what we're developing." "And did you tell Dr. James I was considering a position at Westlake?" "I didn't mention Westlake," Leo said. "Your career decisions are your business. I simply showed her our technology and mentioned you were considering consulting with us." Clara studied him, trying to read his expression. Despite his casual demeanor, there was an intensity to Leo's gaze that suggested her decision mattered to him personally, not just professionally. "I have to go," she said, checking her watch. "My Westlake interview is in 40 minutes. "Of course." Leo extended his hand. "Good luck, Dr. Vega. Whatever you decide, it's been a pleasure meeting you." Something about the finality of his tone made Clara hesitate. "You sound like you're saying goodbye." "Merely acknowledging possibilities," Leo replied. "My offer stands until 5 p.m. today. After that, I'll need to pursue other candidates." Clara shook his hand, lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary. "I'll call you with my decision." As she headed toward the elevator, Leo called after her. "Clara?" She turned, surprised by his use of her first name. "For what it's worth, I think you'd excel at either position, but only one would let you help shape the future of cardiac care." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Clara to contemplate his words as she headed to her interview at Westlake Medical Center. The Westlake interview went perfectly. Dr. Hartman, the actual Dr. Hartman, Clara thought wryly, was impressed with her credentials and experience. By the end of the meeting, he was practically offering her the position outright. "We'll make the formal offer by Monday," he assured her, "but I can tell you now that we're very interested in having you join our team." Clara should have been elated. This was what she had been working toward for years. Yet as she left Westlake and headed home to change for her evening shift, she felt strangely conflicted. At 4:30, sitting in the hospital cafeteria before her shift started, Clara made her decision. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number on Leo's business card. "Hartman," he answered on the second ring. "It's Dr. Vega," Clara said. "I've made my decision." There was a brief pause. "And?" "I'd like to accept the consulting position," Clara said, surprising herself with how right the words felt. "With one condition." "Name it," Leo replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "I'll be accepting the Westlake position as well, assuming they offer it officially. That means I'll only be available for consulting 1 day per week, not 2. Another pause. Longer this time. "Acceptable," Leo finally said, "though we'll need to adjust the compensation proportionally." "Of course," Clara agreed. "I wouldn't expect otherwise." "Well then, Dr. Vega, it seems we have a deal. Deborah will send over the revised contract this evening." "Thank you, Mr. Hartman." "Leo," he corrected automatically. Clara smiled to herself. "Thank you, Leo." As she ended the call, Clara felt a strange mix of excitement and trepidation. She had just committed to working with one of Boston's most powerful and most intriguing men. She told herself it was purely a professional decision based on the merit of the technology and the opportunity to influence patient care. But as she changed into her scrubs for her shift, Clara couldn't quite silence the small voice in her head that wondered if there might be more to it than that, and what exactly she had set in motion by accepting Leonardo Hartman's unexpected offer. Leo set down his phone, a satisfied smile playing across his lips. "She accepted," he announced to Deborah, who was organizing files at her desk. "Both jobs?" Deborah asked, raising an eyebrow. "That's ambitious." "That's Clara," Leo replied, realizing he had used her first name without thinking. "Adjust the contract for 1 day per week and send it to her tonight." "Consider it done." Deborah gave him a knowing look. "You seem pleased for someone who just had his offer negotiated down." Leo leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes getting half of what you want is better than getting nothing at all. Besides," he added with a confident smile, "this is just the beginning." "Of the project?" Deborah asked innocently. "Of course," Leo answered, though his thoughts had already drifted to Clara's determined dark eyes and the challenge they held. "What else would it be?" Deborah merely smiled and returned to her work, leaving Leo to contemplate the unexpected developments that had begun with a misdirected email and where they might lead next. Clara's first consulting day at Hartman Enterprises arrived 3 weeks after she accepted both positions. In that time, she had started her attending physician role at Westlake Medical Center, moved to a new apartment closer to both workplaces, and barely had time to think about what awaited her at Leo's company. "Good morning, Dr. Vega," Deborah greeted her when she stepped off the elevator. "Mr. Hartman asked me to bring you directly to the lab. The team is eager to meet you." The team turned out to be 6 people, 3 engineers, a software developer, a data scientist, and a project manager named Alex, who seemed to be in charge. "We've heard a lot about you," Alex said, shaking her hand. "Leo said you'd be the one to tell us what's wrong with our design." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Did he now?" His exact words were, "Dr. Vega won't sugarcoat anything, which is exactly what this project needs," Alex clarified with a grin. Clara couldn't help but smile. It was an accurate assessment, if slightly presumptuous, given that Leo had only met her twice. The morning passed in a blur of technical demonstrations and detailed explanations. Clara was impressed by the technology, but identified several practical issues that had been overlooked. "The adhesive will irritate patients with sensitive skin," she pointed out, examining the prototype. "And these indicators are too small for elderly patients to read easily. The team took her feedback seriously, making notes and asking follow-up questions. By lunchtime, they had already begun implementing some of her suggestions. "You've made quite an impression," came Leo's voice from the doorway as the team dispersed for lunch. He looked as polished as ever in a tailored blue suit, though he'd dispensed with the tie again. "Just doing what you're paying me for," Clara replied, gathering her notes. "Join me for lunch?" Leo asked. "I'd like to hear your initial thoughts on the project." They ate in a small conference room, discussing the cardiac monitor's potential applications. Clara found herself genuinely engaged, appreciating how quickly Leo grasped technical concepts. "Your team is talented," she acknowledged, "but they need someone thinking about the patient experience, which is precisely why I hired you," Leo said, studying her with those perceptive blue eyes. "How's Westlake going?" "Challenging but good," Clara said. "Dr. Hartman, the real Dr. Hartman, has been very supportive." Leo's mouth twitched. "The real Dr. Hartman? I'm wounded." "Well, he does have an MD after his name," Clara pointed out with a small smile. "True, but I'd argue I'm the more interesting Dr. Hartman," Leo countered, his eyes sparkling with amusement. "You're not a doctor at all," Clara reminded him. "I have a doctorate in biomedical engineering from MIT, Leo said casually. "I just don't use the title professionally, too confusing in the business world." Clara stared at him, reassessing. "You never mentioned that. You never asked." Leo shrugged. "I assumed you'd Googled me. I didn't want to seem like I was stalking you," Clara admitted. Leo laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face. "That's refreshing. Most people research me thoroughly before our first meeting." The conversation shifted to their backgrounds, Leo's research at MIT, Clara's medical training. Time passed quickly, and Clara was surprised to find herself relaxing in his company. "I should get back to work," she said eventually, checking her watch. "Of course." Leo stood. "One more thing. We're hosting a charity gala next Friday for the American Heart Association. As our cardiac consultant, your presence would be valuable. Many of our potential investors will be there." Clara hesitated. "That sounds like an evening function. My consulting hours are during the day." "Consider it a professional opportunity, not an obligation," Leo said smoothly. "Many cardiologists from Boston's top hospitals will attend. Excellent networking for your Westlake position." Put that way, it was hard to refuse. "I'll check my schedule," Clara conceded. Leo's smile was victorious but restrained. "Wonderful. It's black tie, by the way. Deborah can help with recommendations if you need." As Clara returned to the lab, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just agreed to something more significant than a professional networking event. The week passed in a blur of hospital shifts and patient consultations. By Friday evening, Clara was exhausted but found herself standing in front of her bedroom mirror anyway, examining her reflection in the black evening gown May had insisted she buy for the gala. "You look amazing," May declared, helping adjust the dress's neckline. "CEO McDreamy won't know what hit him." "This is a professional event," Clara reminded her, securing a simple diamond pendant around her neck. "Leo will be busy with donors and investors." "Leo, huh?" May raised her eyebrows suggestively. "You've come a long way from Mr. Hartman." Clara ignored the comment as the doorbell rang. Leo had insisted on sending a car, despite her protests that she could take an Uber. The driver escorted her to a sleek black sedan and held the door. Clara was surprised to find Leo himself inside, looking devastatingly handsome in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. "I hope you don't mind," he said as she slid into the seat beside him. "I was in the neighborhood." Clara highly doubted that, but decided not to challenge him. "It's fine." The car was unnecessary, though. "Consider it a perk of the job," Leo replied, his eyes taking in her appearance with unconcealed appreciation. "You look stunning, Dr. Vega." "Thank you," Clara said, feeling suddenly self-conscious. "You clean up pretty well yourself." The drive to the Four Seasons was brief, filled with comfortable small talk. As they pulled up to the hotel entrance, Clara noticed the red carpet and photographers. "You didn't mention the media," she said, tensing slightly. "Local society photographers," Leo explained. "Nothing to worry about. Just smile and keep walking." Before she could protest further, he was exiting the car and extending his hand to help her out. The cameras immediately began flashing as they walked the short red carpet into the hotel. Inside, the ballroom was transformed into an elegant wonderland of crystal and candlelight. At least 300 people mingled, drinking champagne and admiring the elaborate decorations. "Impressive," Clara admitted, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "The gala raises over 2 million annually for cardiac research," Leo said. "Now let me introduce you to some people." The next hour was a whirlwind of introductions. Clara met hospital administrators, cardiology researchers, and potential investors for the monitoring system. To her surprise, Dr. Eleanor James from Boston General was there and greeted her warmly. "Leo tells me you've made significant improvements to the monitor design," Eleanor said. "I'm not surprised. You always had excellent attention to detail in the ER." "The team did the real work," Clara said modestly. "I just pointed out a few practical issues." "Don't underestimate your contribution," Leo interjected, appearing at her elbow. Clara identified flaws that would have caused patient compliance issues. "She potentially saved us millions in redesign costs post-launch." Clara was surprised by the praise and by his use of her first name in a professional setting. Before she could respond, the orchestra began playing, signaling the start of the dancing portion of the evening. "If you'll excuse us," Leo said to Eleanor, "I believe the first dance is about to begin." He turned to Clara with an expectant look. "Shall we?" "You didn't mention dancing," Clara whispered as he led her toward the dance floor. "It's customary for the host to open the dancing," Leo replied innocently. "As my guest, you're the logical partner." Clara wanted to point out that she was his consultant, not his date, but they had already reached the center of the floor. Other couples were joining them, and making a scene would only draw more attention. "Fine," she conceded, "but just one dance." Leo's hand settled at her waist, keeping a respectful distance between them as they began to move to the music. To Clara's surprise, he was an excellent dancer, leading her confidently through the steps. "Where did you learn to dance?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Boarding school," Leo replied. "It was required, along with fencing, sailing, and speaking at least 3 languages." "Sounds privileged," Clara observed. "It was," Leo acknowledged without defensiveness. "I was fortunate in many ways, less so in others." Something in his tone made Clara look up at him questioningly. For a brief moment she glimpsed something beneath the confident exterior, a hint of old pain quickly concealed. "My mother died when I was 11, he explained quietly, seeming to read her curiosity. "Heart failure. It's why cardiac research is so important to me. It's not just business." The personal revelation caught Clara off guard. "I'm sorry," she said sincerely. "I didn't know." "Few people do," Leo replied, his expression softening. "It's not something I discuss at board meetings." The music shifted to a slower tempo, and Leo's hand pressed slightly more firmly at her waist. Almost unconsciously, Clara moved a fraction closer. "Is that why you developed the monitoring system?" she asked. Leo nodded. "Modern remote monitoring might have saved her. Her condition deteriorated suddenly between regular checkups." Clara felt a new understanding of his dedication to the project. It wasn't just ambition or profit driving him, it was personal. They danced in comfortable silence for a moment, the crowd around them fading into the background. Clara was acutely aware of Leo's hand in hers, the subtle scent of his cologne, and the way his eyes seemed to see beyond her professional facade. The music ended too soon and too late all at once. Leo released her reluctantly as applause rippled through the ballroom. "Thank you for the dance, Doctor." "Vega," he said formally, though his eyes conveyed something more personal. "Clara," she corrected, surprising herself. "I think after sharing personal histories on the dance floor, you can call me Clara." Leo's smile was genuine, reaching his eyes. "Clara it is then." As they made their way off the dance floor, Clara caught sight of a society photographer capturing their exit. She wondered briefly what the caption would say, and whether anyone from Westlake would see it. For the remainder of the evening, Leo was the consummate professional host, attending to other guests while periodically checking in on her. Clara found herself enjoying the event more than expected, making valuable professional connections, and even arranging a potential research collaboration with Eleanor James. As midnight approached, Leo appeared at her side again. "Ready to leave? The car is waiting whenever you are." Clara nodded, suddenly aware of her exhaustion after a long week. They said their goodbyes and slipped out to the waiting car. The ride to her apartment was quiet, both of them tired from the evening's activities. When they arrived, Leo escorted her to her door, despite her insistence it wasn't necessary. "I had a good time tonight," Clara admitted as they reached her apartment. "Thank you for inviting me." "Thank you for coming," Leo replied. "The evening wouldn't have been the same without you." There was a moment of tension as they stood facing each other, a brief space filled with unspoken possibilities. Clara found herself noticing details, the slight stubble on Leo's jaw, the way his eyes reflected the dim hallway light, the almost imperceptible shift of his body toward hers. "Well," she said, breaking the moment deliberately, "good night, Leo." "Good night, Clara," he responded, taking a step back. "I'll see you on Wednesday." As Clara closed her door and leaned against it, heart beating inexplicably fast, she wondered if accepting Leo's job offer had been as purely professional a decision as she'd told herself it was. And as Leo returned to the car, he found himself smiling, despite the late hour and a day of exhausting social obligations. Something had shifted between them tonight, something that transcended their professional relationship. The question was, what would they do about it? 6 weeks into their working relationship, Clara had settled into a comfortable routine. Mondays and Thursdays at Westlake, Wednesdays at Hartman Enterprises, and the remaining days covering shifts at Boston General. The cardiac monitoring system was progressing well, with Clara's input leading to several significant improvements. What wasn't routine was the growing tension between her and Leo. Since the charity gala, something had changed. Their weekly meetings had become longer, frequently extending into working dinners where conversation drifted from professional to personal. Leo's casual touches, a hand at her elbow, fingers brushing as he passed documents, seemed increasingly deliberate. Clara told herself she was imagining it, that their relationship was purely professional. Yet she found herself looking forward to Wednesdays with an anticipation that had nothing to do with cardiac monitors. "You're falling for him," May declared one evening, as Clara tried on 3 different outfits before settling on a simple blue dress for her consulting day. "I'm being professional," Clara insisted. "The team is presenting to potential investors today. I need to look appropriate." May just smiled knowingly and said nothing more. At Hartman Enterprises, Clara was immediately swept into final preparations for the investor presentation. The prototype had been refined based on her suggestions, and early clinical results were promising. "There you are," Leo said when she entered the conference room. "I was beginning to worry." "Traffic," Clara explained. "Is everything ready?" Leo nodded, looking more tense than usual in his perfectly tailored suit. "The Johnson Group arrives in 30 minutes. If they invest, we can accelerate the clinical trials significantly." The meeting went flawlessly. Clara presented the clinical applications with confidence, and the investors asked thoughtful questions that she answered with ease. By the end, even Alex looked impressed. "Well done," Leo said as the investors departed. "I think we've got them." The team celebrated with champagne, and Clara allowed herself a small glass. As the others drifted back to their work, Leo approached her with a second glass. "A private toast," he suggested, guiding her toward his office. "To our successful partnership." Leo's office occupied the corner of the top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of Boston. Clara had been there only once before, but was again struck by how the space reflected its occupant, elegant, sophisticated, and slightly intimidating. "To partnership," Clara agreed, clinking her glass against his. "And to possibilities," Leo added, his eyes holding hers over the rim of his glass. Clara took a sip to hide her sudden discomfort. Leo, I think we should clarify something. What's that? He asked, setting down his glass and moving slightly closer. Our relationship is professional, Clara said firmly. I enjoy working with you, but you're concerned about crossing lines, Leo finished for her. I understand. I value our professional relationship too much to jeopardize it. Clara nodded, relieved he understood, and inexplicably disappointed at the same time. That said, Leo continued, his voice dropping slightly, I think we both know there's something more here than just professional respect. Before Clara could respond, there was a knock at the door. Deborah entered with an urgent expression. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, but there's an emergency. Dr. Vega, it's Westlake Medical Center. A doctor... James is on the line saying they need you immediately. Clara's heart raced as she took the call. Eleanor James's voice was tight with tension. Clara, we have a multi-car accident with several cardiac trauma cases. We need all available cardiologists. Can you come? I'm on my way, Clara said immediately, ending the call and turning to Leo. I have to go. Emergency at the hospital. Leo nodded, his expression shifting instantly from intimate to concerned. Take my car. It'll be faster than waiting for a taxi. Clara barely had time to thank him before she was rushing out the door, the unfinished conversation hanging between them. The emergency kept Clara at the hospital for 14 hours straight. By the time all patients were stabilized, it was nearly midnight. She collapsed into a chair in the doctor's lounge, too exhausted to even think about getting home. Her phone buzzed with a text from Leo. How is everything? Are you all right? Clara was surprised by his concern. Exhausted, but fine. All patients stable. Leo, my driver's outside the hospital. Whenever you're ready, he'll take you home. Clara was too tired to argue about his presumptiveness. Thank you. Leaving soon. As promised, Leo's car was waiting. The driver handed her a paper bag as she got in. Mr. Hartman thought you might be hungry, he explained. Inside was a container of soup from her favorite cafe near the office, still warm, and a note. Doctors forget to take care of themselves. The thoughtfulness of the gesture brought unexpected tears to her eyes. Perhaps it was just exhaustion, but Clara found herself wondering if she was fighting her attraction to Leo for valid professional reasons or out of fear. The following Wednesday, Clara arrived at Hartman Enterprises determined to maintain clear boundaries. Their unfinished conversation from the previous week hung heavily in her mind. She was surprised to find the office in chaos. The Johnson Group had committed $8 million to the Cardiac Monitor project, and the timeline for clinical trials had been moved up by 6 months. There you are, Alex said when she arrived. We need your input on the trial protocols immediately. Leo's been asking for you all morning. Clara found Leo in the conference room, surrounded by stacks of documents. He looked up when she entered, his face lighting up with a smile that made her heart skip in a most unprofessional way. Clara, he said, rising to greet her, thank you for the extra hours last week. I hear you saved several lives. Just doing my job, she replied, keeping her tone neutral. Alex said you needed me for the trial protocols. If Leo noticed her professional distance, he didn't show it. They spent the next several hours reviewing clinical trial designs, their heads bent close together over documents. Despite her resolution, Clara found herself relaxing into their familiar rhythm of collaboration. By evening, they were the only ones left in the office, having sent the team home after finalizing the protocols. We should celebrate, Leo suggested, stretching after hours of focused work. The funding is secured, the protocols are approved. This project is happening, largely thanks to you. It's the team's achievement, Clara demurred, gathering her notes. And yours. Have dinner with me, Leo said, his tone making it clear this wasn't just about celebrating the project. Not as CEO and consultant. And Leo and Clara. Clara hesitated, the professional boundaries she'd been so determined to maintain suddenly seeming arbitrary and insufficient. That would complicate things, she said finally. Some things are worth complicating. Leo replied, moving closer, until he was standing directly in front of her. Clara, I've respected your professional boundaries. I've tried to keep my feelings separate from our work, but I can't pretend anymore that I'm not attracted to you, and I think you feel the same. The directness of his admission left her momentarily speechless. Part of her wanted to deny it, to retreat behind professional protocol. But another part, the part that had been looking forward to Wednesdays with increasing anticipation, refused to lie. "It doesn't matter what I feel," she said finally. "You're my employer." "Technically, Hartman Enterprises is your employer," Leo countered, "and you're a consultant, not an employee." "Semantics," Clara argued, though her resolve was weakening. "There's still a power imbalance." Leo considered this, then nodded. "You're right. So let me fix that." He pulled out his phone and sent a quick text. "There. I've just instructed Deborah to transfer oversight of your contract to our COO, effective immediately. I'm no longer involved in any decisions about your employment or compensation." Clara stared at him, caught between exasperation and amusement at his typical directness. "You can't just—" "I can, and I did," Leo interrupted gently. "Clara, I don't want to be your boss. I want to be the man who takes you to dinner and makes you laugh and gets to know who you are outside this office." His sincerity was disarming, and Clara found her carefully constructed defenses crumbling. "One dinner," she conceded finally, "to see if this is even something worth pursuing." The smile that lit up Leo's face made her heart race. "I'll take it. Tomorrow night. I know a place where no one from either of our workplaces will see us." "Tomorrow," Clara agreed, wondering if she was making a huge mistake, or finally allowing herself something she'd wanted for weeks. As they left the office separately that evening, neither could deny the anticipation that hummed between them, or the complications that surely lay ahead. "So you're finally admitting this is a date?" May asked, as she helped Clara zip up a simple black dress the following evening. "It's dinner," Clara corrected, though her nervous energy betrayed her. "To determine if pursuing anything is even realistic." May rolled her eyes. "You've been circling each other for months. Just admit you like him." Clara couldn't deny the flutter in her stomach when the doorbell rang precisely at 7. Leo stood outside in dark jeans and a tailored blazer, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "You look beautiful," he said simply, his appreciative gaze making her cheeks warm. Leo's place where no one would see them turned out to be a small Italian restaurant in the North End, tucked away on a side street. The owner greeted Leo by name and led them to a private table in the back corner. "You come here often?" Clara asked as they settled in. "My father brought me here as a child," Leo explained. "Marco's family has owned it for generations." Mom. The casual revelation of something personal, not calculated or strategic, made Clara realize how little she knew about Leo beyond his professional persona. Over exceptional pasta and wine, they discovered each other properly for the first time. Leo told her about growing up with a brilliant but distant father, his mother's illness, and how it shaped his interest in medical technology. Clara shared stories from medical school, her parents' initial disapproval of her career choice, and her ambitions beyond the ER. "Why cardiology?" Leo asked as they shared a tiramisu. Clara hesitated, then decided on honesty. "My grandfather died of a heart attack when I was 12. The doctors said if he'd gotten treatment even 15 minutes sooner, he might have survived." Leo's eyes softened with understanding. "So we're both trying to save people like the ones we lost." The simple observation created a connection deeper than all their professional interactions combined. As they walked along the waterfront after dinner, Leo took her hand. The gesture felt natural, right, as if they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. "I want to be clear about something," Leo said, stopping to face her. "I'm not interested in casual dating. I don't have time for it, and neither do you." "Then what are you interested in?" Clara asked. "Something real," he answered. "Something worth rearranging schedules and priorities for." Before Clara could respond, Leo cupped her face gently and kissed her. The connection was electric, immediate, and over too soon as he pulled back to gauge her reaction. Clara made her decision and pulled him back to her, deepening the kiss until both were breathless. "I take it you're interested too," Leo murmured against her lips. "I'm considering it," Clara replied with a smile. The next 3 months transformed Clara's life in ways she couldn't have imagined when she accidentally sent that resume. She and Leo established a rhythm: professional distance at Hartman Enterprises on Wednesdays, dinner dates on Friday nights, and increasingly frequent weekends spent together. The cardiac monitoring system progressed through initial trials, with promising results that excited both the medical and investment communities. Their relationship remained private initially, though May and Deborah were well aware. It was only when a society columnist photographed them at a symphony gala that the secret was out. Dr. Vega and CEO Hartman, business or pleasure? And read the caption beneath a photo of them, looking undeniably intimate on the dance floor. Clara braced for professional fallout, but it never came. Dr. Hartman at Westlake merely congratulated her on making an advantageous connection, while Eleanor James winked and said, "About time you two made it official." At Hartman Enterprises, Leo had kept his word. The COO oversaw Clara's contract, and Leo maintained professional boundaries during work hours, though their stolen glances didn't go unnoticed by the team. "You make him human," Alex told her one day. "Before you, he was brilliant but remote. Now, he actually remembers people's names and asks about their families." 6 months after their first dinner, the cardiac monitor received accelerated FDA approval. The team celebrated with champagne and speeches, but Leo seemed distracted throughout the party. "Is everything okay?" Clara asked when they finally had a moment alone in his office. "Better than okay," Leo replied, taking her hands in his. "This approval means everything to the company. 5 years of work finally realized." "I'm proud of you," Clara said sincerely. "Your mother would be too." Leo's expression softened. "I've been thinking about her a lot lately, and about you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "This doesn't have to change anything immediately. I know your fellowship at Westlake begins next month, and your research grant was just approved. But I wanted you to know where I stand." Clara's heart raced as he opened the box to reveal an elegant diamond ring. "I never expected that a misdirected email would change my life," Leo said, his usual confidence giving way to vulnerability. "But finding you was the best mistake I ever made. I love you, Clara. Will you marry me?" Clara thought about the improbable chain of events that had brought them here. An exhausted error, a curious CEO, and all the moments since that had gradually revealed the man behind the executive persona. "Yes," she said simply, her smile answering all his unspoken questions. "Some mistakes are worth making." As Leo slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her close, Clara reflected that her accidental email had been more than just a fortunate error. It had been the beginning of a story neither of them could have written alone, one where professional boundaries gave way to something infinitely more meaningful. And as they sealed their engagement with a kiss, Clara knew that sometimes the best opportunities truly were the unexpected ones. In the years that followed, the cardiac monitoring system Clara helped develop would save thousands of lives, including patients who might have been lost to the same conditions that took Leo's mother and Clara's grandfather. But more importantly, their partnership, professional and personal, would demonstrate that sometimes the most meaningful connections begin with a simple mistake and the courage to see where it might lead. What did you think of the story? Share your opinion in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What was your score? Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to follow all our stories and have fun.